Make it another loss for the Cowboys, and one that is making us wonder, is this it for Cooper Rush? Will we see Trey Lance in week 18? And why didn't Trey Lance enter the game any sooner on Sunday? What is up, Cowboys Nation, and welcome into A to Z Sports Dallas Primetime. I am your host, Mauricio Rodriguez, streaming with you live every Sunday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central, and catching up with you Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays with quick-hitting videos. But tonight, we get a live show because tonight, we get to talk a Cowboys game that happened earlier on Sunday. The Cowboys lost 41-7 to the Eagles, which is never great. Not even if you're tanking, not even if you're eliminated from the playoffs or not. No one will ever enjoy losing to the Eagles, particularly if the scoreboard is as lopsided as it was today. The Cowboys lost. A lot of takeaways from it, but one of the things that clearly sticks out as a talking point is quarterback play, because Cooper Rush was bad on Sunday, extremely bad. And obviously, first game with no CD Lamb on the field, we expected some blemishes to be present for the Cowboys passing offense, but nothing was going well for Dallas, offensively speaking, right? The two interceptions that Cooper Rush threw on this game, both were ugly as heck. One of them, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was there all along, right? Greg Olsen did a fantastic job breaking the play down in the Fox Sports broadcast. And I know that he's passing off the Jake Ferguson route and then kind of like lurking towards this land, which is a pass that Cooper Rush is throwing. But one, he's there always. Like, Gardner Johnson did not come out of nowhere to pick that ball off. Chauncey Gardner Johnson is lurking on that ball all the way. And the reason why he's there, and part of the reason why he can make that pick so easily and go for a pick six, is that Cooper Rush doesn't turn to look at anybody else before making that a pass. Cooper Rush looks at one man and one man only before throwing that ball. Later in the game, the arm punt, I mean, what else can we say about that one? He just chucked it downfield, basically getting rid of the football as if it were a punt. And if it's not picked off by Gardner Johnson, it's picked off by Quinton Mitchell, who is also there to make the play. And those are the picks, which are the obvious plays. But there were a lot of misplays, misreads, and misthrows, overthrows on this one. It seemed to me that there were a couple of down the field shots that the Cowboys did not complete, either because of Cooper Rush or because the receivers were not on the same page. I know Jonathan Mingo has been getting a lot of criticism because he didn't track the ball when he goes downfield and he's beating his man. And it looked like for a moment Jonathan Mingo was about to get himself into the highlight reel with a deep bomb from Cooper Rush. But I think Cooper Rush kind of overthrows it, and then Jonathan Mingo kind of does little to underthrows it, and then Jonathan Mingo does little to track the football. It seems to me that Jonathan Mingo is looking for it inside while Cooper Rush threw it outside. And that was a chemistry issue there for quarterback and wide receiver. But it got to a point, and let me know if you agree or disagree with me in the comments. It got to a point that you just wondered, when are they going to play Trey Lance? And I say this as someone who has been critical of Trey Lance. I say this as someone who has struggled to buy into the idea that playing Trey Lance was a good idea, because my whole reasoning was Trey Lance wasn't better than Cooper Rush in the preseason. What makes me think he's going to be better than him in the regular season? However, the Cowboys were down so bad on this game, and Cooper Rush was having such a rough day, and you have nothing to play for, and Trey Lance cannot go in until the final drive of the game. And by the way, the title of the show is Mike McCarthy makes an admission about Cooper Rush and Trey Lance. He was asked if he had thought about it earlier, and he said, yeah, the drive before. And I think that makes the whole thing even worse, It was a small comment from Mike McCarthy, but one, if you thought about it the drive before, why didn't you play him the drive before? This is the second time this season that, and the first one happened early on after Dak Prescott's season-ending injury, but he had already finished one of these games saying, I wish I had played Trey Lance sooner. So this is the second time that happens to Mike McCarthy. I would love to hear more on that thought process. Now, number two, why did it take until the second to last drive of the game to you even consider it, for you to even consider it? I don't get it. And again, I say this as someone who has been a little bit contrarian to the idea of playing Trey Lance this season, because I've been giving the Cowboys the benefit of the doubt while saying, hey, Lance was not any good in the preseason. But at the point that we were today, I just don't get why you wouldn't do what you were supposed to do, which is play Trey Lance a little bit. And that was one of my biggest takeaways from the game. We'll get into more on tonight's show. But I do wonder, is this it for Cooper Rush? And I say that because I don't know if you want to do more years of this. Now, don't get me wrong. I think when the Cowboys look at this stat sheet and they say that, and they see that Cooper Rush is 9-4 as a starter in his career, and with 3 of those losses, by the way, actually 9-5 now, with 3 of those losses being against the Eagles, maybe they convince themselves into thinking, we cannot get rid of Cooper Rush. But he's going to be 32 years old next year. And I don't know if there's any upside there that you want to bet on. I would much rather take a flyer on a late round quarterback if I can get one in April, and maybe sign somebody else that is cheaper to back up Dak Prescott in the meantime while we get into the NFL draft. So we'll see. We'll see. But I do wonder if this is the kind of game that it kind of makes you go, okay, Cooper Rush has some moments when he's asked to back up whoever, but you cannot escape the fact that he's such a limited quarterback when it comes to throwing the ball down the field, when it comes to doing a lot of these things. And again, Mike McCarthy said after the game that he didn't even wish to throw the football all that much because he hoped to run more. But the fact that there were 4 turnovers on this game resulted on the Cowboys playing from behind the 8 ball and needing to throw much more often, which, by the way, I'll just add some drama into the whole conversation right now. Kevontae Turpin kind of complained about it. I want to hear the actual clip before jumping into any crazy conclusions here. But the quote literally reads, I just feel like at the end of the day, with CD gone, we weren't really calling no pass plays. We were just running the football, throwing checkdowns. That's the plan in the receiving room. We thought we were going to go out there and show some people it ain't all about CD. At the end of the day, we wasn't getting no down the field routes being called. We just had to see what we could do. That kind of feels like a slight shot at Mike McCarthy, doesn't it? I think that's Kevontae Turpin complaining about the play calling because he's saying we're not getting any down the field throws and we're getting only check downs. Kind of felt like it a little bit. Well, let's see what you guys have to say, though. Shout out to all of you. Welcome into the show. Thank you for joining me on tonight's episode of Primetime. Shout out to Mark Aaron, who says trading for Lance was just dumb. And at this point, there's no denying it. The Cowboys will deny it. The Cowboys have publicly said that they don't regret trading for Trey Lance, but they clearly do. They clearly do. Trey Lance has barely played for Dallas. He's barely been the number 2 guy on the team. In fact, he hasn't been the number 2 guy on the team. I think when the Cowboys got him, they were trying to gain some leverage in the Dak Prescott negotiations. And they said, hey, in the meantime, we might also upgrade at backup quarterback. And then they found out, nope, we're just doing this for leverage, I guess. And of course, they failed with that as well. But anyways, Chuck says Rush sucks. He's overrated, not even an average quarterback. And it depends on who you ask, if he's being overrated or not. But if the logic from some people is that he is good because of his career record, then yes, I agree that is overrating him. I agree with what Chuck is saying here in the comments. because I kind of get the feeling that a lot of people do overrate Cooper Rush a little bit because of the fact that he stepped up for the Cowboys by winning some ball games. But the truth is, when the Cowboys have won with Cooper Rush, rarely has it been about Cooper Rush having a good game. Mostly it's been things are going well and we're not turning the ball over. And that's enough, right? For a backup quarterback. So that's not necessarily bad. But without the upside, I do think he's overrated a little bit. He's overrated when people describe him as one of the best backups in the league. Morris Jackson says that is not an option. Need to build around Dak, improve the line, and sign another threat opposite of Lamb. And I think that was in response to someone saying that they should get rid of Dak Prescott or something. And that is something that I agree with Morris as well. None of that is going to be an option anytime soon. The Cowboys, they just got to build a better team. They just got to get that done, man. Now, by the way, before we turn the page from the quarterback topic, let me say this. Mike McCarthy didn't commit to anyone to start at a quarterback for next week. So it seems to me the door is open for a Trey Lance game in week 18. And specifically, he only said, I don't know yet. I'm not there. I'm not there yet. So it wasn't a situation where, oh, yeah, Cooper Rush is going to start for us next week, which multiple times this season, that's been the response. Now it was more of, hey, I'm not there yet. That's what Mike McCarthy said when he was asked if Trey Lance would get the start next weekend. So he kind of shoved the question aside, but also kind of left the door open for Trey Lance. Mark says, I think they will start Cooper Rush again. You know, I'm a betting man, and I would bet on the same. Just based on the evidence that the Cowboys don't seem to like Trey Lance that much, which is the reason why he hasn't played in 2024, really. So I think they've made their opinion on the quarterback spot very clear. But that caught my attention, though. Even though I think that Cooper Rush is going to get the start, kind of felt like the door was open a little bit. And that was different from what Mike McCarthy has usually said in press conferences. So I'm intrigued. At the very least, I am intrigued as to what they'll do going into week 18 when they face the Commanders that are actually playing Sunday Night Football right now versus the Atlanta Falcons in a rookie versus rookie matchup, which has been exciting so far. But getting in some other takeaways from the game, we've talked about one man that was mostly responsible for the loss today. Let's talk about the other one, shall we? Because Andrew Booth Jr. Andrew Booth Jr. should... I hate to be mean, and I don't mean to be mean, but he shouldn't have made the cut back in August. Andrew Booth Jr. was not good in the preseason. Andrew Booth, for all that Mike Zimmer has done well, and I know Mike Zimmer has been getting some props lately from Cowboys fans with the way that defense has improved. I think that is one of the bad things from the Mike Zimmer hiring. I think that sticking to Andrew Booth Jr. has been one of the least justifiable decisions that the Cowboys have made all year. Because he was bad in the preseason and they didn't cut him. And at the time, back in August, this is not hindsight, by the way, I wrote about, at ADC Sports, one of the biggest surprises from the 53-man roster was, to me, Andrew Booth making the cut. Because people like to talk about his tackling in August. He was tackling a lot because he was allowing so many completions in the first place. Then you play him in week 4. Because here's, let's have ourselves a reminder as to what Andrew Booth Jr. season has looked like for Dallas. Struggled in the preseason, and specifically, I'm thinking about 3 deep shots against Andrew Booth Jr. where he got completely beaten. They made those amazing passes, and he allowed them. That happened in the preseason, gets a spot on the roster. At this point, Darren Bland is injured, and the top backup was 5th-round rookie Kalen Carson. And the Cowboys go, you know what? It's okay. We can survive the Darren Bland injury. It's going to take him about 4 weeks to return. We can do this with Kalen Carson. Then Kalen Carson goes injured as well. And the Cowboys because they had sat on their butts and did nothing. They didn't sign anybody else at cornerback, even though injuries were mounting up. They said, well, we'll just do Kalen Carson. By halftime, this was in week 4 versus the Giants. By halftime, they had benched Andrew Booth Jr. And you know who got that place? It was Amani Oruwariji. That was the first game from Amani with the Cowboys because they needed the depth, and he ended up replacing Andrew Booth Jr., who was being destroyed in the first half of that game. And then the Cowboys didn't turn back to Andrew Booth Jr. anymore. I think the Cowboys had seen enough by then. And now, instead of trying to do something different, it was once again Andrew Booth Jr. starting for Dallas. And unsurprisingly, he got burned by Devonta Smith over and over again. And I think going into that game, that was already the dangerous matchup because when we were getting the feeling that, hey, not Julie Jones, I don't know why I said that. AJ Brown is going to be shadowed by Deron Bland, and that is going to leave Andrew Booth on Devonta Smith unless they change the lineup. They didn't. There was one drive where Troy Pride Jr., who was making his debut with the Cowboys, entered the game, number 32. And then he was ejected from the game. And then it was back to Andrew Booth Jr., who gave up 2 touchdowns to Devonta Smith and should have been 3, but Devonta Smith ended up landing the 1-yard line. And then the Eagles just punched it in from 1 yard out. And listen, several layers to this. Number one, okay, yeah, Andrew Booth did not play a great football game, and Andrew Booth shouldn't be starting in the NFL. We've learned this over and over again. But number two, the Cowboys have done nothing all season about their cornerback depth. This has been a problem since week 1 when they started Kalen Carson. Kalen Carson also was not supposed to start as a 5th-round rookie. The Cowboys knew they were going to need him, and they still didn't do anything about it. They still didn't sign a veteran. They still didn't trade for anybody. The trade the Cowboys pulled off to improve their cornerback depth happened in August, and it was, let's get rid of Nashawn Wright and swap him for Andrew Booth Jr. Because this cornerback swap idea worked out for us great in 2023 when we gave up Kelvin Joseph for Noah Igbinoghene. It just feels like the front office never learns anything. And that's just crazy to think about. So that's what I think there were a lot of things that went wrong on Sunday versus the Eagles. But I think if you're listing reasons why you lost, you got to go Cooper Rush, you got to go Andrew Booth Jr. in that order. And again, that isn't the only thing, right? But anyways, Mark Aaron says, dang, Clemson players. That's what upsets me the most as a Clemson fan. The fact that Andrew Booth Jr. is a former Tiger. Damn it, man. But anyways, Ice Cold Cowboy says, Kalen Carson better earn that starting number 21. Yes. On one hand, yes. On the other hand, just stop trusting late-round rookies to step into these huge roles when they're not ready, right? That's one of my biggest issues as well. Where's Booth Senior? Maybe he's better. That's an awesome comment. But yeah, those are some of my biggest takeaways. Obviously, Cooper Rush's interceptions were not the only turnovers. There were also the fumble issues, one from Rico Dowdle, another for Jake Ferguson. And I got to say about Jake Ferguson, man, I don't know what happened. But I think that obviously he didn't have quite the breakout year that we thought he was going to have. Or maybe Ferguson already had his breakout year. We thought it was all about taking it to the next level in 2024. We thought about, hey, Ferguson might just become a household name that everyone in the NFL recognizes, and he might end up like a top 5 tight end in 2024. Not only has he failed to do that, but I think Ferguson has had such a bad year. he is far from that number 2 target that we thought he was going to emerge as. And every time that he's targeted, it seems like it's a passing the flats, you know? And maybe that has to do with no Dak Prescott translating into no seam routes or no vertical routes. But it just seems like it hasn't been there for Jake Ferguson. And I'm not totally sure if it's about the injury or if it's about the quarterback or the play calling, the game planning. But in 2025, you got to see another version of Jake Ferguson. Otherwise, it's like, yeah, I'm not sure we can bet on the guy long term. And I say this as someone who was all in into the Jake Ferguson hype this offseason. So I'm hoping for a rebound year in 2025. And I'm betting on it. And I wouldn't prioritize tight end as a need because I'm still trusting Jake Ferguson as a starter. But I'm not sure he is really on that star trajectory that we thought he was on. And if he was, he definitely took a step backwards in 2025. We got to see more from him. And maybe that starts with the coaching staff, though, and the quarterback play. To be fair, that might be the biggest issue with number 87. That being said, as far as this game goes, you just cannot fumble that ball. And the same goes for Rico Dowdle. And to be fair, and I didn't love Mike McCarthy's play calling today. I didn't love the game plan particularly. But to be fair, it is tough if you're going into the game with a run-first game plan to turn the ball over 4 times and then have to push for a comeback against such a good rushing team like the Eagles are, with Saquon Barkley going for over 160 yards like it's nothing. And I'll give the defense a pass in several areas. Not Andrew Booth Jr. Andrew Booth Jr. doesn't get a pass. But the defense was just on the field all day long, and they were getting bullied all game long. That being said, one thing that also disappointed me quite a lot from this one was the pass rush was not getting home. Kenny Pickett, Tanner McKee, didn't even matter. They were working from clean pockets on this one. And maybe Micah had a pressure here and there, but there were plenty of instances where Mike Zimmer said, here we go, we're blitzing. And everything was picked up perfectly. Big credit to the Eagles' offensive line and protection scheme overall. Kenny Pickett throwing that first touchdown pass to Devonta Smith. The Cowboys are blitzing there. It just doesn't look like it because the Eagles pick it up perfectly, smoothly. Kenny Pickett barely even has to climb the pocket to deliver the football. That was very, honestly, one of the biggest disappointments from this game for me. I know the Eagles have a top offensive line, but I thought, hey, the Cowboys, they're going to turn up the heat a little bit on this game, and that was never the case. I don't know what the final numbers were, but I'm pretty sure when we look at the PFF stats tomorrow, we're going to see that the Eagles quarterbacks were very pressured on this one. So there you go. What else do we have around here, man? Very depressing show times as you see it. And yeah, hey, we're just talking about the Cowboys here and trying to be as objective as we can, but it's true, right? Mark says, we drove down the field the first drive, then bam, pick 6. Then we drive again, scored a touchdown. Then the play calling went to crap. And it's true. What happened in the first 2 drives that you couldn't replicate later in the game at all? Because as Mark Aaron is pointing out here, you never got that back. It happened during the first 2 drives, and then you were out of it. Completely and utterly out of it. Let's look at the possessions here very quickly, all right? 7-play drive for 35 yards. It's not much, right? But as Mark says, they were moving the ball. That ends up in a pick 6. 12-play drive, 70 yards. They took 6 minutes off the clock with that touchdown drive the Cowboys did. Follow that by a 3-and-out, 6-play drive with a punt, 1-play drive, fumble, immediate fumble, 6-play drive for 16 yards, ends in an interception, 3-and-out, 9-play drive, fumble, right? So let me uh, reframe this, right? After the second drive, which was the touchdown drive for the Cowboys, you had one, two, three, four, five. The five following drives, two of them only went for more than 3 plays, and those ended up in a punt and an interception, right? So you're only longer than 3 play drives. The only drives where you're getting first downs, you were turning the ball over. And then you finally get a 9 play drive. You're finally cooking in the fourth quarter, fumble at the Philadelphia Eagles 11-yard line. It's just, man, you just don't win games that way. You just don't. You absolutely don't. So this play, man, this game, excuse me, kind of brings back a lot of the negativity around Cowboys Nation that was kind of not really subsiding, but we were entertained by that 4-1 run that the Cowboys went on. During that 4-1 run, they turned the ball over 4 times, and then they matched the number versus the Eagles. And obviously, all of the issues come back into our thought process where we're like, should they bring back Mike McCarthy? Maybe not. And I'm sure that will be what we discuss this week once again, among other stuff. But right now, this is not the kind of game that Mike McCarthy needed to put on film to convince the Joneses that, hey, I can lead this team. Now, I will argue that this isn't about quitting or fighting for the team or all of that. We knew that the Cowboys were fighting for McCarthy. This is what we've talked about for the last few weeks. However, now that they lose, we don't get to say that, hey, they quit. They quit on the coach. They quit on everything. They just got beat. They just got blown out and destroyed. That's worse, I think, to some degree. And it's not that different from other seasons, right? This is the big game kind of stuff that we always talk about when the Cowboys are not really ready for it, if you will. The Cowboys are now 7-9. The season is over anyways. And we are bound for an interesting final week of the season. And once it is over, things will get real interesting in Dallas as we wait. And Jerry Jones also waits to let us know to really milk the storyline. You know that decision is not going to happen that fast at all. They're going to take their time with it. And we'll see. And now regarding Mike Zimmer, I wanted to shout out Joe Hoyt from Old City, Dallas, who brought up this point post-game on their show. I saw it on Twitter. Shout out to them, to all the crew, Aisha, Bosch, Jeff Cavanaugh. They were talking about Zimmer, and Joe Hoyt said, hey, wait a minute. A friend of the show, by the way. He's been here a couple times. Joe said, hey, does Mike Zimmer want to come back? Because Mike Zimmer might not be having a lot of fun with the Cowboys in 2024. So can we all assume that he's going to be back if the Cowboys want him back? Because the answer might be no. Maybe we'll talk more about that later in the week. For now, though, hope that you enjoyed the show, and I'll see you tomorrow with more Cowboys content. Have a good one, man. Hope that you have a good rest of your Sunday night. Enjoy the game. It's looking like it's going to be a good one between the Falcons and the Commanders. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.